All right, we are live. All right. Well, this is the very first After-Arts Livestream. I've never done a live before. I have a grasp of what we're supposed to do. So here we go. Today's episode is called The Narcissist is Threatened by Your Light. It's been a while since I posted anything. I started this channel about 9 years ago, and I was still suffering from a variety of narcissistic abuse from a variety of narcissists that I was drawn to over and over again in my life. And it was part of my healing process. And I was doing a lot of purging and a lot of learning. And as I went along, I processed everything that I processed what I needed to process in order to move on to the next step in my life. And what I've been up to for the last year is I've written a book, and I produced an audio book of my book. And my husband and we're building a studio, and we are doing a lot of music and video. I've been doing an awful lot of video editing, which I enjoy very much. I have the patience to do it. And anybody can edit video, but you have to want to. So I need to restate for the record that I am not a doctor, nor do I claim to be. I am just a human who has been on this planet for a minute, sharing my human experience. So think of me as a friend sharing with you and comparing notes. You know, when you talk to a friend for advice, and especially when you have been narcissistically abused, you will talk your friend's ears off because you have been so traumatized that you need to vent to whoever will listen. And never once are you going to say, I don't want advice from you because you're not a shrink and you don't have a diploma, a piece of paper to verify your indoctrination into the very same system and culture made by and to serve the narcissists of the world. No, you just want to vent. You want someone to help you make sense of what's happened to you and to know that you aren't alone and that you aren't crazy. And no, it's not you, it's them. You didn't know any better, and you did the best that you could at the time. In the immortal words of Alanis Morissette, you live, you learn. So here's a song about the narcissists of the world. It's called Snake Handlers. Phony, false, and fake. It's the snake. It's the snake. Who was your first mistake? It's the snake. It's the snake. And there's questions that answers won't change. When there's blood on his hands from the scandal, who handles the snake? Runs the fiery lake. It's the snake. Who wants to see you fake? It's the snake. It's the snake. And there's questions that answers won't change. When there's blood on his hands from the scandal, who handles the snake? Always on the take. It's the snake. It's the snake. Destruction in his wake. It's the snake. It's the snake. And there's questions that answers won't shake. When there's blood on his hands from the scandal, who handles the snake? When there's blood on his hands, and the world understands that there's blood on his hands, and we've made our demands. When there's blood on his hands from the scandal, who handles the snake? Who handles the snake? So what do I mean when I say the narcissist is threatened by your light and doesn't want you to shine? Well, an empathic human being will see you for all of your possibilities and will root for you to realize your full potential and will be genuinely proud and happy for you to come into your own and will celebrate your achievements because that is love. And one of the ways that love expresses itself in relationship. But the narcissist isn't about love in the way that an empathetic human being expresses love. They will love you, quote unquote, in their own twisted way when your efforts meet their needs, and they can live vicariously through you, like a stage mother or a sports dad, because your role for the narcissist is to be their little robot, their little droid, to do their bidding. That's all. And the sooner one recognizes this fact, the better. There will never be a point where they suddenly get it and feel where you're coming from, even if you really and genuinely believe deep down that they have the potential to love you in a way that feels to you like love, because you've seen faint and intermittent glimmers of what sounds like it could be something resembling empathy. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. The narcissist fancies themselves as clever and will now and then throw you a bone to keep you bound to them, so they can drain every last ounce of narcissistic supply that they can from you until they find a better source of supply, or better yet, that you wake up and take your life back. The narcissist is a parasite trapped in a vortex of pain and fear and darkness. They can only create more of the same. So they are threatened by your light and cannot stand to see you shine. Now, How do we do that? It's a process that is individual to every human being. But in this interview with the legendary guitarist Steve Vai, he shares his personal journey, and what he describes is the template that anyone can follow. And let me cue it up.
Do all these things and to look for solutions rather than see obstacles.
The alternative was killing me, literally. You know, when I was young, 20, 21, 22, I was very cynical. I had a very negative perspective of the world and the people. I was hanging out with Frank Zappa, you know, and although Frank had this unbelievable wit and ability to balance situations with the right comment, he was also a lover of life. And I also, I didn't realize then that he liked people. You know, and at 18, 19, 20 years old, working with someone like that, when they're criticizing everybody and everything, you develop an attitude of that. I allowed myself to develop an attitude, you know, and as a result, the world became not a fun place, you know, and it created a lot of mental suffering. So that was the impetus for the change in perspective, the intense mental suffering of a negative perspective. Okay, that's what depression is. It's the entertaining of useless, unnecessary negative thoughts in your head that you believe. So when I discovered that the choice is mine and it can't be anybody else's, that's when I discovered that the quality of my life is my responsibility. And it's based on how I choose to see the world. So my perspective started to change. It became more friendly. And everything changed as a result. Doesn't mean that I still don't have challenges and I didn't go through some, you know, but you view your challenges differently.
With that in mind, then, did that, especially around that time, as you were kind of coming out of that, that darker period of your life, then did that kind of how would you say that? Reignite the flame as a guitar player, or was that always a constant throughout?
There was always an excitement about playing the guitar, but the ability for me to focus on something constructive and creative, that grew tremendously when I moved to Sylmar. It was a little home that I built a studio in, and I recorded Flexible. And the recording of Flexible was an unbelievably cathartic experience for me, because I started it basically when I was coming out of this deep, dark depression. And I was finding light. You know, I had no obligations. I had no desire to be famous, really. I had no bands. I was totally left to my own. And I lived on a property with people I loved. And we had an amazing little community, and we just played music, and I built this little studio, and it became, I started to, with all the esoteric reading I was doing at the time, I was going through serious transitions. And this flowed into the music. So when you listen to Flexible, there's this innocence and naivete in it that was part of my rebound.
All right, so Steve Vai has a light that would not be extinguished, and he reacted against the toxic environment that was bringing him down by surrounding himself with a loving, caring, positive environment and spent his days immersed in what he loved to do. The album that he made during this period, Flexible, he owned the masters to and was able to keep all of the profits. And with this album, he found his true voice. He established the foundation for his solo career. And as he went on to do world-class gigs with Alcatraz, David Lee Roth, and Whitesnake, that album sold more and more copies, paying his bills during the lean times, and no doubt it's still selling today. So whether Vai went about his process intentionally or intuitively, this is the way life works. Now, there is only one Steve Vai, but every empathetic human being is here to do our part. The world needs your light. The world needs your goodness and your humanity and your love for one another. The world needs for you to find your own special voice, your true self, to be the fully self-actualized human being that you were born to be. And this is how we overcome the narcissists. Now, if you appreciate what I do, please support me on Patreon. That would help me to do more of this content. And, comment, please share, please subscribe. And thank you. Thank you for joining me here on my first live. All right. After Arts out.